suddenly the Pies off the hook. Should have been a Demons goal.
They've kept it in for the moment, the Pies. Langdon is about to be caught. He just got booped to ball.
Chris to Barco, and they are out of trouble.
Oh, terrific passage, Barco. Lovely long ball. Elliott there, two against him in the air.
It hits the ground at the back and they chase Jeddah. Swan gets there, snaps the goal.
Heartbreaking for the D's. They went the full length of the ground.
Well, it just should not have been at the other end. Jack Watts will be disappointed. A fumble, and the Magpies have made the Demons pay.
Time now to hear from coaches Paul Roos and Nathan Buckley about the big clash out at the MCG today, with Mark Robinson and Jared Waitley asking the questions.
Side by side they stick together to uphold.
So back to the old days of World of Sport. Great to have you both here.
Very good sense, guys.
Louis.
Very good, yeah, very good.
I think someone would sit in the corner there and fire the questions.
Lovely smoking and drinking beers. Good days.
So, Paul, to you first. As you're driving here, with a few minutes to think about it on the way, what are you thinking about? What are you obsessing over from the day?
Oh, look, I think the positives were just... It was a great game. I mean, both teams I thought had a real crack, and probably just in the end it was the mistakes. You know, we just made too many mistakes that were... And games of footy are filled with mistakes, but it's probably the real glaring ones at the end of the day that really hurt us, because that means your effort levels... To cover them, your effort level's probably got to be 10% better than the other team, and I didn't think it was today. We were pretty even in that regard. So that was really the difference, just the... You know, and whether that's the good positioning, I think Blair... Dunny kicked it to Blair, and we saw that. You don't mean to drop that mark, but it's probably more what happens. The Colin was precise, kicking, ball use, Barco gets it, stuff like that. So I mean, they contributed in an offensive side to it, but we probably just didn't help ourselves. And in the end of the day, that was probably the difference. So I was pleased with the effort, pleased with our ability to round the contest. So it was a cracking game if you sort of take your Melbourne coaches out.
No, it was. It was a really enjoyable game.
And other than a throbbing hamstring that probably going to require you to cut your pants off at the end, what are you thinking about as you drive?
Oh, we were quite frustrated with some of the things in the game as well. I mean, your coaches, you're never fully satisfied, but we thought Melbourne's midfield controlled the balance of the day. The game went with contested possession and clearance, which we thought it would. I think we were +11, +3 in contest and clearance in the first quarter, and the next two quarters were -18, -8. And the game, we felt like the game went that way. We had to change things structurally to balance that, and we thought that we hadn't had to do that all year. For the most part, we've had really good even effort through the clearances and in the midfield, but. Melbourne came to play. We thought Vince and Jones were probably the two dominant midfielders on the day, and credit to them. And the way that Roosie used his wingers, sweeping wingers, to come in and get involved in clearance. Although it's not unique, it was something that they surprised us with, and they were able to get momentum with through second and third quarter.
Really important matchups today, and one very significant move by both of you. The Tom McDonald, Travis Cloke, probably the most informed defender going up, a guy who'd been struggling. I'll get you to talk about that. But the most significant thing for me was, Pendle said this after the game, you guys rolled cross back, which forced you or made you think, well, we've got to roll someone back, and it was Oxley. Why? I need to ask you, how often did you think about stopping Oxley being by himself behind the ball?
Yeah, so what happened was Bucks put a seventh defender, which was obviously to change the momentum, so it wasn't actually...
Who did it first?
So it was Collingwood doing that with Oxley. So we thought at the time, I think it was about midway through the second or...
It's probably about 4 goals.
So we were probably comfortable getting back into the game and then getting to half-time. We spoke about it at half-time, and we went through the... if it does happen again, we probably thought, let's even it up. And that was supposed to what happened in the second. They came out after half-time with 6 and 6.
Square. Yep.
Yeah, square.
Yep.
And then, again, late in the quarter, and the guys that we'd already spoke to about making sure we even it up, didn't get it done.
They didn't know? They didn't see it?
No, we spoke about it, yeah.
But you spoke about it at half-time.
And then we sent the
runner out
again.
So, right, Oxley's behind.
Yeah.
And they did it or not?
No, well, they didn't do it well enough. And then I think the other thing was we were really disappointed with our forwards, that a lot of those balls coming into Oxley were I think one of them went over the wing of a Boeing 737 and he still
pretty
marked it. They were
high.
high.
Yeah.
So, you know, for you to cope with one back, firstly, we should have squared it up. But secondly, a lot of teams do it, but you've got to get that ball to ground, you know, and you've got to create that chaos, and we weren't able to do that.
It was significant in your win today.
Well, I thought it was. Yeah, we, the fact that we gave up 9 goals from stoppage, which is, you know, that's world record pace, 9-2. So 11 shots from stoppage and only 8 from turnover. So generally that's not the balance of scoring. So so Melbourne were very good from scoring out of those clearance situations, and we stabilised at the last sort of 10 or 15 in the second. And at halftime when we discussed it, we said, are we going to start with a 7th? No, we're going to back our mids to be able to fight the fight and to be able to square up that battle. They weren't able to. So really late in the third, we put Oxley back and then ran with that structure for the beginning of the last quarter and through the last quarter, which is something that we'd prefer not to do.
You don't usually play like that.
We'd prefer not to do. And we thought that our forwards were actually harassing well enough to be able to, and I thought we rounded up Melbourne's loose, because you give a loose to the opposition when you do that, and we thought we probably did that better.
Which was back or usually around the stoppage, but Melbourne went back with Crossy instead of putting him around the
in the
contest.
first instance, yeah. So prior to half time, yeah, and after half time, it should have been 7v7, but it wasn't.
Right, I need to ask you, I know you're here. Were you surprised that you were allowed to run Oxley by himself for so long?
I think we've done that to death, and we were like, he was effective for us. And I actually thought the other thing that, as Ruzi was saying, that our key backs did a really good job of protecting Ox when the ball was a chance of going to him in the air. And that's been a regulation that's come in play around being able to allow every player around the contest to go to the ball, but it's still an art to be able to do that. And key defenders on Trav or key defenders on Jesse White, I think St Kilda did it really well under Ross, through the late 2000s. Having that ability of being able to get that early body. The key defender gets the early body on, looking like he's going to go to the contest, but allows the +1. Sam Fisher, I remember doing it time after time after time. I thought we did that well and better than we'd done it before.
Cloak gets 3 early on Tom McDonald and you make the shift. Why do you make the shift at that stage?
Oh, that's probably the defensive coach's call, to be honest. And that's what you rely on your assistant coaches to do that. I think he got 4 in the first quarter. So a lot of it's obviously keep Tommy's confidence up as well. Fullback's a tough spot to play. So a bit of it is about obviously trying to stop Travis, firstly, but also just changing the mindset of your player too. That's been really good for us, Tommy has, but he probably didn't recover from that first part of the game.
Did you talk to him a quarter time about, righto, new role, get your attitude back?
Oh, it wouldn't have been a new role. It would have been because he's played on different players before, but it wouldn't have been a new role for him. But yeah, look, I didn't speak to him directly, but I made sure the assistant coach spoke to him at half time about just, make sure. I think we send a message out to him when we move. Okay, just forget the first part of the game and concentrate on the rest of the game.
So Lyndon Dunn plays on him from there. Do you think about giving McDonald another go during the match, or are you settled with?
Not really, because I thought the first 3, and I'd have to go over the whole 7 bucks might know. The first 3 were really in the contest. I think the 4th was one where we turned it over, got over the top. 5th was a free kick. So I probably felt early on there was some really opportunities to sort of make an impact on him, which Tom wasn't able to do and be the first to admit it. But after that, it was probably more our ball use and a couple of things that really Lyndon had trouble stopping.
Says a lot about Travis Cloak, Bucks. I mean, it was on the agenda for 4 or 5 days about 2.5 weeks ago. And you were trying to temper it because, temper it. We want to put confidence in him. To come out and kick 7 straight, particularly that one from the boundary line, wrong side. I mean, that's Travis Cloak. That's Travis Cloak, the best power forward in the competition's form today.
The percentage is still on high from completing from that angle. With left foot to the boundary. So I mean that was a good finish. But the ones that we want to see him kicking are the ones straight out in front. I mean they're the ones that he wants to finish as well. But 7 straight's a good return. I think he only had 12 disposals, and after quarter time. He had that one from the boundary, one for he recovered from a marking contest and a snap, and then the one from the free kick. So, to your question around McDonald, you don't have to get that matchup back. If the game, and I would have thought that from quarter time, Melbourne would have felt like they'd had the flow of play, and that some of the moves that they'd made and some of the players and tactics that they'd run with had been working for them. So you're really loath to change momentum when you've got it. But clearly there are things that need to be changed and tinkered, and if you can add to that momentum, well, then you're looking for that. But for us, Clokey started really well, and we would try to open the forward line up for him as much as we could. Taking a forward out of there and putting one behind isn't opening it up, but we needed to balance things up in some shape and form because the momentum wasn't going our way.
Was it a tough day in the box? I'm sure they're all tough.
Yeah.
But was today particularly tough because the way Melbourne were playing with the stoppage and the clearance and goals from there, and you're not playing...
Well, I thought we had to win a different way today. So it showed a real maturity for us. We'll take out of it a real maturity around our ability to be able to structure up slightly differently, to be able to move the ball slightly differently because of that structure. We defended better today than we had for the previous month, so that was a focus going in. We defended turnover better, we turned the ball over in our front half better. We made it harder for the opposition, although it looked easy at times, we made it harder for the opposition to take it from our forward line to their forward line without pressure, without turnover. So we did some things better, but yeah, we had to win that game differently to our last 6 wins, and against the way that we'd prefer to play our footy.
Do you agree with that? Did you go out, set out to say, right, we've got to stop Collingwood playing the style that they want to play? We're going to be strong at the stoppage, which you were. You're going to get scores from the stoppage, which hasn't really been happening too much. So at half-time, you would have been thinking a lot of things are going right.
Oh, even after the game. I mean, look, I think when you're scouting an opposition, Bucks probably had... You only go 2 or 3 things really about the opposition, because good teams play well week in, week out, pretty much doing what they want to do. And then, you have to adjust in game state, etc., etc. So we looked at a couple of things that they did really well, and I'm sure they looked at a couple of things that we did really...
Can you tell me, give us a couple of examples on Collingwood?
Well, they generally pull their winger right out behind centre. We noticed that last week where they try to create a little hit over the top for their ruck, which has worked well. Swanee goes round, goes inside. So we tried to sort of, like Bucks picked up, we tried to clog that up a bit to take away that exit, which has been really successful. Certainly last week against the Kangas, it worked really well for them.
So you notice that in the box? You say, look what they're doing. They're sending someone behind Swanee, Steele. Can't get that. Get that.
Not everything we think the opposition are doing, they're actually doing either. So it's not an exact science.
No.
But Melbourne have been bottom 2 score from stoppage differential, and you'd probably lead the round in the end, because I think you were plus 30 points or something from stoppages today. So so there's a difference straight away. So all of the evidence on the first 9 rounds has been flipped on its head. So that would have been a great result for you.
That's the thing when you talk about the extra back, even though, as I said, we did have a plan to number off. But if you get extras around the stoppages, you're generally going to you have to have one, but you can't get everything. It's not like you've got 19 blokes on the ground to 18. So sometimes to correct one area, you actually have to give in a different area. And that's the whole art of, and then working out, is it working as a team scenario? Are you happy with the balance of the game? We sort of got back into the game. We thought, well, Oxy's making a difference prior to half-time, but we thought, well, at least we're back in the game now. And that's the continual adjustment, because, as I said, to correct one area, sometimes you do it at the expense of another.
It's clear as mud, isn't it?
Yeah. So Vincent Pendlebury, at some stage, do you make during the second quarter, to make the switch for Vince to go for it, not be the hard tag?
Not really. I mean, you're relying on... I think Bucks and I talked a bit about before about if they reduce the number of interchange, you'll see the genuine tagger come back into the game. I think, Bucks, you would have been tagged, and I think what we're seeing now with 120, if it goes any lower, I think what you will find is that we'll probably find, we'll find a player that goes, right, bang, you go to Pendlebury, don't touch the footy. But you can't really do that now with the way the game is. So you're relying on Bernie's nous around the footy and ability to play two ways.
Why? What's it? Why? Because they're coming on and off. They can't.
Yeah,
they can't
well, Pendles is going forward and then he's coming off the ground.
Yeah.
And,
You're supposed to argue this last week.
Yeah. Well, that's the reason.
What do you want to see?
I know.
You
what
want to see the
see.
best players play on each other? Like,
Yeah,
no,
yes,
you see it forward and back. You know, so
Yes.
let's say that for 2/3 of the matchups, we see it forward and back. Small forward on a good small defender, you see that generally. Tall forward on a good on the best tall defender, you get them. But through the middle, because the game is stabilised to the point where we're starting to see like Dangerfield, Fife.
Yeah.
And you'll see Pendlebury, Vince, like they're two good players.
Yeah.
We Jack Crisp is our run with play at the moment. Now, he's not a hard stopper because we want him to go and get dangerous offensively and spread the other way as well. I don't reckon... I mean, Crowley's gone out of the Fremantle side. Has it made them worse?
Better.
No. Well, potentially their midfield's better but they're playing... But the best midfielders are midfielders that will hunt hard forward, but they will run back to support their defence as well. They're hard running up and back. And they're still winning contested ball, and they're good on the spread. So, I mean, we want to see the best midfielders against the best midfielders, and I think we're seeing the game's in pretty good balance at the moment.
How are you?
I'm okay, mate. Yeah, I'm good.
It's been a little while since there have been TV cameras camped at the hospital trying to get you on the way in.
It's a joke.
What were you doing? Do you overstretch, or you getting your ambitions mixed up with your capabilities?
Well, I'd put 6 really hard strides in. I was about to ankle tap a bloke who was through a hole and was going to the try line. I didn't get him, by the way, which I'm bleeding about. But no, you can always do better. So I did my hammy better than I've ever done it before.
You were quite unwell, I'm told.
Oh yeah, for the 24 hours post. Yeah, no, there wasn't a lot of fresh air to be had. But Julian Fellows worked on me a couple of times, and in the end, I mean, the day, like. If you were none the wiser, apart from me moving very slowly from the bench to the
you didn't know.
You wouldn't know. And the players were, in the end, if I couldn't have coached, I wouldn't have been able to coach. Well, then halves would have picked up and we would have been fine. We saw it with Brad Scott and North Melbourne. I think the idea of ringing in, I think that's hilarious. I think that's a joke. I don't think. I mean, if I'm not there, I'm not there. Well, then you trust people to do what they do. But no, it worked out.
All right, one last one. Chris Judd, if this does look like the end, did you feel the sadness that we all felt?
Oh, absolutely. I can't remember what I was doing, and then someone texted me, or I was speaking to maybe my son, and they said, Juddy, I said, what? It's all like disbelief. I think everyone in footy felt it, and then you see the footage of him doing it, and yeah, look, it's just really sad. I mean, he's just been such an ornament to the game, and I mean, we had some great battles with him when he played for the Eagles, and what he's done at Carlton.
Yeah, God almighty, he would have given you nightmares.
Yeah, he gave me nightmares.
For a couple of years.
And no one wants to see him finish like that, and look, he'll make a decision, obviously, in due course as to whether he goes on or not.
Were you fast enough to keep up with him, Bucks? Or?
No. But I think the fact of the game and the fact of the matter is you don't get to choose your exit. You very rarely get to choose your exit. And we saw it with Mick, a couple of weeks ago, and in my last year there was the polar opposites were Shane Crawford and Scott West. Now Scott West didn't get back. Fought, didn't get back. Crawford fought back and held on, and then ended up finishing with a premiership. I got back in round 21 and played 5 games, so I didn't feel fortunate or unfortunate because I had examples on either side. And Juddy'd be hating the fact he's injured, but in the end, you can only deal with what you deal with. And as he said, that's footy.
Well, in the old days of World of Sport, I'll get that. Lou Richards and Jack Dyer would just
Very nice.
I wasn't even born for the sport. I'll need a
Well, we get one boot.
There we go.
One boot.
A little bit of work out the yard.
especially for you.
What do you want?
And the winning coach gets a pie. Get a pie stuck in here, mate.
Pass me that Voltaren.
There you go.
Thanks, mate. That's all I
Hamper,
Good on you, boys.
Yes.
Did I go now?
Yeah, good.
I've been on every show this week.
It's a pretty face.
Yeah, that's right. See you guys.
So, yes, thanks for coming in on the night of your work. Well done. Nathan
Thank you,
Buckley and
guys.
Paul Roos with us on AFL 360. So, 2 more protagonists from the game, and they were key figures, Travis Cloke and Tom McDonald, who we have spoken about the matchup and the flow on the couch, and then Chris Mew is tonight's guest on Open Mic.